Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, live the life we love. It's Thursday, that means it's story day. Actually, this is the first story from Grimm's fairy tale, The Frog Prince. Um, Maybe some of you remember it. Yeah, in olden times when wishing still helped, there was a kingdom, and the king had a daughter who loved nothing more than to play with her golden ball. Her face was radiant like the sun. Even when the sun shone on her, the sun was astonished at how beautiful and radiant she was. Well, one day she took her ball out to the forest to play, and she stopped by this pool out there in the forest, throwing the ball up and down. And then accidentally the ball fell out of her little hand and fell into the water. And although she ran after it, it disappeared. She started crying. She was so upset that she lost the ball. And her tears, oh, it was copious. All of a sudden, she heard a voice saying, "Why are you so sad, little girl?" And she said, "Who is that?" And looked, there was an old frog that lifted his head up out of the water. He said, "Because my golden ball fell in." He said, "I'd do anything to get it back." He said, "Well, I'd be glad to help you. Oh, I'll give you my jewels. I'll give you my crown. I'll give you my dress." I says, "I don't need your crown or your jewels or your jewels, but if you will let me be your companion and eat from your plate and sleep in your bed, then I'd be glad." He says, "Oh, sure, go ahead, do that. I'll give anything for the ball." And of course, as soon as the frog jumped in the water, she said, "Silly frog, you can't be a companion to a human being." Well, in a thrice, the frog came back and had the ball and gave it to her. Says, "Okay, now you can take me." But she didn't. She wasn't good to her word. She just grabbed the ball. She was happy to get it back, and she ran back to the palace. He says, "Wait, wait for me. I can't run as fast as you." But she didn't wait. So she went back to the palace. Everything seemed to be okay. But the next day, when she was eating with her dad, there was a knock on the door. "Who's that?" So she went to see it, and it was the frog. And she slammed the door back in the frog's face, and she came back to the table. And her father noticed that like her breath was like violently beating against her chest. He says, "What's wrong with you?" She says, "Oh, nothing." Then they heard the knock on the door again. She went back there again. It was the frog again. Oh, she tried to slam the door again. Father said, "Hey, what's going on here?" So she said, "Well, I lost my golden ball, and this frog went and got it, and I had promised him they could eat at my table." He says, "Well, you got to keep your royal promise. Your word is really important. So bring the frog in." So that's what she did. The frog hopped up on the table. The frog was so happy to finally be there next to the princess, and he was eating out of her plate. Oh, this disgusted her. She wanted to throw up. Every bite he was taking made her choke. Oh, it was disgusting. And then finally, when they eaten, he said, "All right, now you have to take me up into your bedroom with you." "Oh my God, no, I can't do that." And the father said, "Hey, you got to perform that which you promised. Don't despise somebody who helped you before." So she took him up into the bedroom, and of course it was slimy. She was like holding with two fingers. She could barely touch it. It was disgusting. And then when she got to the bedroom, the frog said, "Okay, now let me sleep into the bed, and I want to be next to those beautiful sheets that you sleep in." And she was so disgusted. She grabbed this, "You odious frog," and she threw it against the wall. And immediately it changed from a frog to a handsome young prince. And he said, "Thank you so much for freeing me. I was enchanted by a witch, and only you could have broken the spell." So she was so thrilled. He said, I'm the king of my own kingdom, and tomorrow my servants will come and will take us away to Oregon." So she was so thrilled. And of course, the next day, right on time, this beautiful carriage with 8 beautiful white horses came. They had these beautiful peacock um, plumes on their forehead. It was just wonderful. And they got into the coach with his servant, faithful Henry. And he noticed that Henry had 3 iron bands around his chest. He says, "What that's for?" He says, "Well, when you got changed into a frog, my grief and sadness was so much that I put these iron bands around my chest to prevent my heart from bursting." Okay. So they'll go in the coach for a little while or a long while, or whatever while it takes in these stories, and all of a sudden they heard this big cracking going on. And the prince said, "Henry, is there something wrong with the carriage?" He says, "No, it's just one of those bands bursting from my heart." It happened a second and a third time. And each time the prince said, "Is the carriage falling apart?" He says, "No, no, it's just my iron bands releasing from my heart. I'm bursting with happiness now that you're free." And so that's the story of the Frog Prince. Go figure it out. But anytime gold is mentioned in the fairy tale, um, you know the story's going to go through to completion or have a happy ending, as we like to say. All right, so I'm always asking people, what do you long for? Show me what you long for, and I'll really show you who you are. And I'm really interested in people not waiting, but doing now what you really think is important, or as Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss, because that's where your real life energy is. So that when you look back in your life, I don't want you to consider what you wish you had done differently. I wish that you'd look back in your life with gratefulness and thankfulness for all the things that you did do. Now, I always say that amygdala is that background of unsettledness and watchfulness that's so automatic sometimes we forget that it's there. But that's the brain's default setting for apprehensiveness. It's a great way to keep that inner monkey looking over its shoulder for something that's about to pounce on it. And if you're always thinking that you're surrounded by threats, you'll never lower your guard down. And it's true that we're all involved in a relentless collision between the needs of life and the realities of existence. But if we let go of the exaggerated and bogus claims while still accepting the fact that we can't dodge all the bullets, you have to learn to stroke the belly of your inner iguana, or your rat, or your feral squirrel, or your inner cave person, or whatever you want to talk about, because they will prevent you from fully sensing your inner strength and resolve. Find some task that helps you separate yourself from the world. You don't have to be in a social net every day. That will help you stay stable and sane. Most important is to be aware that you're alive. In the moment, you're doing just fine. You have to learn to say, I'm all right now. The fear that bad things will happen if you let yourself feel okay is unfounded. Let that sink in. Bad things will happen if you let yourself feel okay. That is unfounded. So you don't need to fear feeling all right. And if you can let yourself feel all right, you will see that consideration, reciprocity, benevolence, compassion, kindness, helpfulness, warmth, appreciation, patience, forbearance, you have a lot to contribute in your vast store of generosity. So keep refueling yourself, find your way to re up the energy, as I like to say, because it's easier to give when your cup runneth over and not when you're running on empty. Have a great day. 2 weeks from now, we'll be back with the next Good Vibrations class called Yoga and Universality. Go to GabrielHalpern.com website to sign up. And of course, I'd love to hear from anybody. So anything you want to share with me about what I'm putting out and how it affects you, I'd love to hear that.